What's up, everybody? This is the Messed Up to Setups podcast, and I'm comedian Michael Halcomb. In today's episode, I've got comedian Tim Conniff with me, and you're not going to want to miss this, so stick around.
It's all messed up, yeah, everything's messed up. We're going from this mess up to the next setup. Everything seems so messed up, but it's just our setup.
Hey, everybody, Michael Halcomb here, and today I have Tim Conniff. Am I saying your last name right, Conniff?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all right. I got Tim Conniff with me. Tim, we've talked before, you and I. We've met on Zoom, but we've never met in person, so it's good to see you again, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, and let's just start with some of the basics, like where are you at?
So I am today I'm in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is where I call home. It's a town just outside of Philadelphia, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of the city, and in the Delaware Valley here.
All right, right on, man. And so there in Pennsylvania, you've been busy. I know you host and you perform and you got a number of things going on. So what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, so I do a few different things. One is stand-up comedy. So whether that's at a comedy club, fundraisers, corporate shows, churches, you name it. The other is MC work. So hosting events, fundraisers, things of that nature. And then the final thing that keeps me really busy is keynote speaking. So I do a motivational, humorous talk about getting out of your comfort zone, overcoming challenges, and avoiding negative self-talk that seeps into our minds. So the title of it is Your Comfort Zone is No Joke. And it essentially is clean stand-up comedy coupled with messages. These messages around my stand-up comedy journey.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I want to get into some of that here. Like when did you get into stand-up comedy?
So the first time I ever did stand-up comedy was actually in college, and it was an interesting way to get into it. It was SpeechComm 101, and the professor gave us an assignment. The assignment was to go out of our comfort zone and come back and give a speech about it. And I was a broke college kid, so I couldn't afford to skydive or anything like that. So I decided that I was going to jump in my car. I was born and raised and living in Scranton. I went to the University of Scranton up in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Right.
So I jumped in my car and I drove 3 hours to Center City, Philadelphia, waited in line with 30 some other comics at a typical Wednesday night open mic, got on stage, got my 5 minutes of fame, drove back. A few days later, I gave a speech about it. And the professor was floored because I guess no one had ever tied in public speaking to the assignment before. And I got an A, probably the only A I ever got, Michael. So it was great. Yeah, and I got an A. And then for the next 30 years, I did absolutely nothing with it. I got busy, my career, husband, dad, coach, all those things. And then probably about almost 4 years ago, once the kids got older and they stopped playing travel basketball and AAU and all these, all that stuff, I had a lot of time on my hands. So my wife and I just one night we were at the local comedy club watching an open mic, and I was sitting there watching these 10 to 15 folks get up there and do their thing, and I had an I can do that moment. And I went home, I was inspired. I emailed the club owner. I said, I want to get on your next open mic. And he said, you're on January 7th, 2022. And I gathered up my jokes again and went back and got on stage and did my 5 minutes. And he pulled me aside. He said, that was really good for the first time. He said, usually the first time sucks. He said, I'd like to bring you back, give you 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. He's like, let's see where it goes. He's like, it takes a long time to learn stand-up comedy. And I said, that's fine. That's all I have is time. So I started going back each week and, got laughs and got feedback on what I could do to get better. And it got a bit better every time I started to meet all these other comedians who had rooms and they saw me perform, and they're like, I could use you at my room in Jersey or Delaware or wherever. And before you knew it, my first year, I had almost 70 paid gigs my first year.
Amazing.
And, within 6 months, I was the weekly host of that show at my local comedy club. And today I'm on the Messed Up podcast. I mean, the journey has been amazing.
I love the setup for that. I did not see that coming. So that's good stuff. Oh, that's awesome. Well, so what if for somebody who's like just getting into it, maybe even just considering it, like what are some of those things that you heard early on along the way, like some tips to get better?
Yeah. I think one of the things that, and I try to manage people's expectations because as you know, you've been in the business, usually you don't have 70 paid gigs your first year, you're not hosting within 6 months, stuff like that. But, my mentor, the guy who owns the comedy club, he said, you had come into this with a lot of other experiences that were
Right.
transferable into stand up. So I was a member of a organization called Toastmasters
Yeah.
International for a number of years. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
Yep.
it was the best development I ever had. I did it for probably 8 or 9 years throughout my career, especially when I was younger, just getting out of college and starting out. And that really helped me with platform skills, eye contact, hand gestures, vocal variety, a lot of things you have to develop as a stand-up comedian. And then I had about 30 years of corporate America experience where I was leading meetings and facilitating workshops. So I wasn't doing stand-up, but I was up
Right.
there telling jokes, trying to make it more interesting for the people that were in the seats. So I think that was very helpful. The big thing early on is you got to get stage time. This is
Yeah.
a skill you can't learn in your base. I could learn to play the banjo over here in the corner and and probably do okay. Stand up, you need a live audience because everything we write we think is funny. And then we get up on stage and try it and find out that 80% of it is garbage and no one laughs at it. So you,
Yeah.
you really need that live audience. So you got to get your stage time in.
So managing expectations, getting stage time. Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, these days, do you have I'm always curious about this, whether it's like somebody who's writing a book or somebody who's, like, doing stand up, whatever. Do you have a writing routine?
I wish I could tell you I'd go to the coffee shop and grind it out for 2 hours a day, but I do not. I do have a notes app on my phone.
Yeah.
So as an idea comes to me, I will capture it and then go back and look at it later and try to develop it into something. Some of it I come up with on stage. When I'm in a set, I'll throw something in. Oh, that worked. And I'll add it in. I would like to get to the point where I have a more regiment writing practice, but
Right.
it's honestly not there yet. Sometimes it's at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and I'm like, oh, and I get my
Yeah.
phone out and I start writing a joke. So
Right.
it's too
Dude,
random.
that note, like the notes app, like Android, iPhone, whatever, is really invaluable. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that you can like speak to it and it'll type for you,
Hmm.
like while you're driving or just whatever, like the ideas, right? And comedians, like I feel like our minds never really shut off, right? They're always
Yeah.
like always looking for that next thing, always on the lookout, and yeah, notes app is just invaluable,
Yeah, because you'll forget it. You think, oh, I'll remember that. I
right?
don't, I don't need to write it down. Then you're like, oh my God, what was that joke? It was so good. And you can't remember it.
Yeah, like there've been so many times where I've been laying there in bed about to fall asleep and a joke pops into my mind. I'm like, "Oh, I'll get it in the morning," and then nah, it's gone.
Mm-mm.
Never
Gone.
to be retrieved. So I've really tried to make a habit of getting that down in the app. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And a lot of comedians I know, most of the comedians I know are doing that sort of thing these days. I see a few still carrying around the little notepads or notebooks, those sorts of things. But yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people are doing that.
I'm really
So
bad with paper, but even my set, I will write out, it's in a Word document so I could copy and paste and edit words and try to cut down the number of words and tighten it up. So big believer of doing it digitally. That was what works for me.
yeah.
Some people would never work for them.
Yeah, I find that works very well. Although I do think like there's something creative that happens with the tactile when you're actually writing. So,
Hmm.
when I teach joke writing, I have my students use a pencil and paper. I
Yeah. No, I
require.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's so you've been at it for a little while. You've done all the things you're hosting. Let's talk about that for a minute. I am curious too. I mean, the way that it worked out for you, kind of just being around, the club owner starts talking to you. I think that's pretty fascinating as well. But
Mhm.
the role of a host. So educate everybody out there. Like, if I know you're the one hosting, but what do you look for? Like, if you're going to give somebody the opportunity to host.
Yeah, so I hosted at my local club probably about 18 months straight. So I got a lot of at bats doing it. And
Wow.
once again, I think when I look back to my corporate experience, I look back to Toastmasters because one of the roles you play in Toastmasters is the Toastmaster of the meeting. So you're running the entire meeting. You got to get it off to a good start. You've got to work on the transition. So probably Toastmasters set me up for success in hosting as much as anything. And I think it's the hardest job, and one of the most. When I was doing it, the headliners would tell me, "Hey, you did a great job." They're like, "That's the hardest job. It's the most important job," and I thought they were just blowing smoke and stuff like that.
Right.
But then when I started to move along the pecking order, I started featuring and things like that, and I was like, "Wow, the jokes are so much funnier once you're 30 minutes into the show. Wow, okay, I see how this works." Because every time you're getting up there, it's the cold open every time. People are just getting settled in; they're not
Right.
warm yet, and you've really got to get the. It's almost like the lead hitter in the leadoff hitter in a baseball team. You got to get on base. You got to get it going. So I like that. I like the fact that it's a challenge. I also produce some shows as well. I do some fundraisers and things like that. And I keep the role of host, even though I'm doing typically on other showcases, other shows, I'm doing longer sets, primarily featuring, closed out a handful of shows, but I still stay in that host role in a show that I'm producing. I don't want to make myself the headline or anything like that, but I know that I have a strength there and I've been able to do it. So I get that off to a good start and I get the crowd going and then just let it go from there.
Yeah. I think, it's such an important, I agree with you, super important role to get the crowd going, get everybody primed up. And if there's a bad host, it makes all the difference in the world.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
uh, you talk about having the cold open. Well, I've seen a number of hosts just keep it cold,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it makes it hard to win the room when you got to get up there after that sort of thing. To be a real challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, people, whether you're giving a speech or you're getting up on stage and telling jokes, in Toastmasters, that I always say the audience is nervous. You might be nervous, but the audience is nervous for you. And somebody had
Mm,
said that to me after a show recently, like, you really, you looked like you were very comfortable and at ease up there. When you look comfortable at ease, you make us feel comfortable. I
mm,
think that's something we got to think about as hosts is like, what are we doing to make people feel welcome and comfortable and at ease? And then some like other things, like generally as a host, even if it's at a comedy club, you got to work primarily clean. You can't be coming out slinging F-bombs and doing gratuitous sexual stuff because you could have
mm,
clean comedians behind you. And I think once you take that audience into that ditch, then they got to pull them out or they
mm.
have to try to out dirty you, which a lot of them don't want to do. So I think that's where it's especially important if you want a host to be able to get up there and work clean for 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, whatever they need you to do.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Just doing because I only work clean as well, and I'm curious. What what got you thinking in the direction of just of going the clean route as opposed to like the blue route, of course.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about stand-up comedy is that it's challenging. I like the challenge of it. And I always felt like early on that like I want to challenge myself to write the jokes so good that I don't need to insert X word into it. And I know if on my regular set, if I just threw in a couple strategic words like that, I could get more laughs.
Right.
But I'm challenged myself to be a better writer. So I like the
Right.
challenge of it. That's one. Number two is my mentor, who on the comedy club, Andy Scarpati. He said, if you learn to work broadcast network TV clean, he said, you'll never have a problem getting booked. And,
Hmm.
and he was right because you have so many more opportunities when you work clean, from corporate shows to churches to senior living to obviously comedy clubs, fundraisers. You could do all that stuff. And then the final thing I've heard as I listen to podcasts like yours, reading comedy books, is you'll hear the phrase a lot. There's green and clean. There's green
Hmm.
and clean.
Right.
So if you want to make any kind of money doing this, you're generally going to have to work clean unless you
Yeah.
figure
I
out
mean,
another way.
I don't know that I had 70 paid like in my first year, but I remember I was maybe a couple months into performing stand-up comedy and I got paid $20. And
Yeah.
and I made a joke about it in one of my sets. And another comedian who had been doing comedy for over a decade, he came up to me after the show. He's pissed off, and he's like, something to the effect of like, "Who do you think you are? Making jokes about." Like getting paid to do stand up comedy. You know how long it took me to get paid $20 to earn my first 20 doing stand up comedy over almost 10 years. And I'm thinking,
Okay.
that's a really long time. So he's doing all right now, but like that's a really long time to go without getting paid anything, right? And so I've had more paying gigs. I had more paying gigs in my first year than I didn't. And so
Right.
that's been pretty encouraging to me because I've noticed that that's not typically the case,
No. Well, he
right?
gets an A for perseverance, man. That's I don't know. I can't tell you I had to do something for a decade without getting paid.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of fascinating. So I think the strategy to work clean has been a huge part of that for me. Like
Yeah.
it makes me easily bookable. Like the booker doesn't have to worry that I'm going to upset somebody or say something, wrong or whatever
Right.
to sour their audiences, but
Yeah.
it's worked pretty well for me, dude, to work clean,
Yeah.
And so, just another opportunity this weekend I have coming up with the weekend that ahead of us that we're recording this anyway. I'm teaching a 2-day, they're calling it like a camp or really a master class is what they've named it, but it's a comedy joke writing camp for high school kids
Oh
at a
wow.
local theater. And like I think if I hadn't been able to pitch like, well, this is all I'm a clean comedian, I work clean, I'll teach them to write clean, like I don't know that I would have been able to do that, you
Oh
know.
no. Yeah. Who's gonna put
Yeah.
their kids in with a guy who's up there cursing and doing sexual stuff, right? That's great. Those kids are lucky to have that access. I wish I had that when I was
Right?
that age.
I know,
Yeah.
man. Like I didn't even know growing up that doing stand-up comedy was an option, and if I had known that, my life might look very different at this point, but I'm not complaining or anything, but
Uh,
if there's one thing I could go back and maybe do would be start stand-up comedy earlier,
hmm.
I wish I
Yeah.
had started a lot earlier. But that's how it goes. So,
All
well,
right.
how often do you find yourself sort of writing material? I know you got the notes app and you're probably just writing things down. But how often, like how many hours in a week or something do you think you collectively write material?
I would say most days of the week I'm doing something, whether it's putting the seed of an
Right.
idea in my phone, that would be one. Two is as I'm prepping for the upcoming shows for the week and I'm going through what I'm going to use my set, I will do some writing there. So yeah, most days of the week I'm probably touching it in some way, shape, or form, or at least kind of thinking about it, or getting up on stage and doing it and tweaking
Yeah.
some stuff. So there's a lot of consistency
Yeah.
in terms of my writing, I would say.
So since you're hosting a show, are you the one booking the comedians for the show?
Yeah. I mean, if it's my own show, because generally I don't host anymore unless it's my own show. Usually I'm like featuring or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, what are you looking for in a comedian when you're going to bring them on to a show that you're doing?
Yeah, first and foremost, they have to be funny. My name's on the line. I want to put on a great show
Yeah.
for the audience. If someone's going to pay me to produce a show for them for do their fundraiser, I want it to be a great show. So they have to be funny. That's number one. And then after that, a lot of it'll be driven by what the venue is and what we're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah.
If it is a show at a VFW, that's very different than a fundraiser for a Catholic church. So I'll
Right.
take those things into consideration. I have no objection to comedians who work dirty just because I work clean. They have every right to do that.
Right.
And that's fine. And I'll watch a comedian who has uses foul language or some other subjects and find them funny. So that's fine. But most of my stuff it probably has to be cleanish, like
Yeah.
PG-13, maybe light R, if that. Uh, the other thing I do comedy, I've learned comedy is very personal. So when I put together a lineup, I want to make sure that I have a lot of different food groups represented, if you will, right? I don't
Yeah.
want 3 white males in their 50s because not everybody
Oh,
finds white males in their 50s funny. So if I could, I always try to have at least one woman on the show as well, because half of my audience is typically going to be women, sometimes more than half of the audience is women. So I like to make sure I have a diverse lineup. So everybody who walks away, they might not think every comedian is funny. I mean, I sat through headlining sets and didn't laugh one bit. And sometimes I'd
right.
see an opener that I thought was really funny. So comedy is very personal, but I want to make sure they're walking away and at least they connected and related to and laughed for at least one comedian, hopefully all three
Right.
or four, but at least one. That's my goal.
Yeah. Wow. That's great stuff. Well, let me share your website here. For those of you watching, you're gonna be able to see it. For those of you listening, once you get a chance, head over to Tim Conniff 2 N's, 2 F's there, timconniff.com. And you can check out what Tim is up to. You can book him for your next event. Yeah, there's a lot of he's worked for a lot of folks, Dow, Corning, Siemens, Simons, Johnson and Johnson, all sorts of things. You can see his gallery there, and he's got a blog. And yeah, so head over to timconniff.com, and I'm sure you got your socials linked on here, Tim.
Yeah, my
Yep, there they
calendar,
are.
if you go down a little lower, show where I'm going to be over the next few months. I try to keep that somewhat updated.
Yeah. So and then you got the Facebook and all that
There it
over
is.
there, LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Instagram. They can follow you on there. Very good, man. Looks like you got some great shows coming up here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, some exciting ones coming up. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. We're gonna have an episode 2 with Tim, and he's gonna bring a premise or a joke or something, and we're gonna see if we can work on and punch it up together, workshop it. But in the meantime, head over to timconniff.com, and after you've done that, head over to michaelhalcomb.live. You can follow, subscribe there. You got a daily comedy blog, and the podcasts like these are on there as well, and always talking comedy over there. So lots of free, useful resources. But Tim, dude, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on, and
Yeah, that was
appreciate
great.
that.
Great being here. And when you asked about how to prepare for stand-up comedy, I just discovered your podcast recently, but I wish I had it 4 or 5 years ago. There's a lot of great resources in there, a lot of great interviews. So anyone who's kicking the tires on comedy, I would recommend they go back and listen to a lot of your previous episodes because there's a lot of valuable information in there.
Yeah, I appreciate that plug, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
been really fortunate to just talk to a lot of great, hardworking comedians, and
Yeah.
hope to keep doing that. So I appreciate you coming on, and everybody out there watching or listening. Thanks so much for doing that. We're gonna end part 1 here. Stop there and say we hope that helps.
It's all messed up, yeah. Everything's messed up. We're going from this mess up to the next setup. Everything seems so messed up, but it's just our setup.